Hi everyone, Amber here from Majestic. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm so excited. We are sewing up a full-size backpack. This is the Stian. I think I'm pronouncing it right. In case I'm not, it's Stian, and it is from Lacus Designs, and it comes together so nicely. She has 3 different options for this backpack. She has one where it is just the zipper on the top. She has an option for a drawstring top, or she has the option for this one here where it folds over and buckles into place. And I also chose to add a zipper. You can add a zipper or not on this one. So for this one here, I did my exterior in all water resistant canvas and lined it with fusible fleece. It also has 2 pockets that you could put on the side, and they're quite deep. So I'm super happy about that. It has a front pocket here. And like I said, I chose to do the buckle design. So when you open it, there is an option for an interior zipper pocket. I know it's probably hard to see inside. The inside, I used the waterproof canvas. Let's see if I can fold it back. Yeah, here's the zipper. So it's a little bit further down because it folds over. So I love this because it is a full-size backpack. I'm not sure the largest size laptop you could fit in here, but you could definitely fit textbooks. And if you wanted to put like more padding or foam into it, there's so many options that you could do. I think it worked perfectly with the fusible fleece. And then I just used webbings for all the straps. So you could make your own. In the directions, she shows you how to make your own straps for both the buckle here, the hang, or the back straps. So I'm just going to put it on real quick. I'm 5'2", so you can kind of see and like get it in relation. So I'm really excited. I'm going to start using this as my new work bag. Like I said, especially because the pocket's on the side, I could put my iced coffee cup for the subway, and it's going to fit all my folders and iPad, everything else that I carry perfectly. So again, I'm going to link everything in the description. This is the Stian from Lacus Designs. Thank you so much, Sylvie, for allowing me to film. All her patterns are written so wonderfully. They have both metric and imperial. And I just really love the clear instructions that I feel like even as a beginner, you could read her patterns and understand how to make the bag. So I'm going to have timestamps in the description for every step of the way. And if you enjoy the tutorial, I would love if you subscribe or give me a thumbs up. It really does help my channel grow, and I appreciate it so much. Enjoy the tutorial. All right, so I have all my pieces laid out. There are a lot of pieces, and my favorite thing is that Sylvie included little tags. So I have cut them all out to help label, because I'm doing option C, which has the buckle enclosure, and I'm going to put the slip pockets on the side. So for anything that is an exterior fabric, I did interface them with some fusible fleece. This is the water resistant canvas that I carry in the shop, and I feel like the fusible fleece will give it a little bit of cushion. If I was going to be carrying electronics or something a little bit more breakable in the bag, I might even do like foam or a thicker interfacing. But for this, I think it's going to be fine. And then all my lining pieces are the waterproof canvas, which has the thicker PVC backing. So I did not interface any of these. And so I have all the pieces cut out. I'm not going to go over all of them because, like I said, there's so many. And I really, really highly recommend cutting out the little tags and clipping them together. That was very helpful to make sure that I cut out everything that I needed. The other thing is I do not have the strips for like the enclosure or the straps. I'm going to be using webbing for that, so you do not see those cutout pieces here. All right, so I have all my tools and hardware. I'm going to be using rose gold zipper tape. I'm using size 5. That's my preference when I make bags. And I have 3 zipper pulls. These are our book pulls that we carry in the shop in rose gold. I have 3 adjustable sliders, as well as 2 square rings. This hardware is also in the shop. It's the thicker kind. That's my personal favorite. I have some dusty pink webbing. It is the seatbelt webbing. It is the thinner kind. I just realized I grabbed the adjustable. I might switch these out for a fixed bar. I find that sometimes the fixed bar works better with webbing. I have a side release buckle, plenty of clips. I'll be sewing with a 9014 Microtex needle. I have a pair of embroidery scissors and a seam ripper stiletto combo, a chalk pen, a silver marking pen, a ruler, and I'll be sewing with this Text 35 thread from Wizardry Stitchery. I do use it in both the top and my bobbin on my domestic, and if there's any other tools as we go along that I may have forgot to put here, I'll let you know. Okay, so for our first step, we need our front bottom panel. This is going to be our zipper panel or zipper pocket. So I'm just going to take the zipper clip to the side. Now, I cut my zipper tape slightly longer than the panel. I just prefer to do that to have a little bit of wiggle room on the edges. You could put your zipper pull on now. I'm going to wait until I base stitch and get this going. So we are going to take our zipper and we're going to put it teeth side down. So if you've cut your zippers already, you're going to want to line up the centers. I'm just going to make sure I have a little bit on each edge. If you have your zipper pull on already, as you are clipping this, I highly recommend moving your zipper pull. That's one of the ways you can get a wavy zipper if you do not move your zipper pull. Most people just move it while they're sewing, but I found that even with clipping, you can sometimes get a wavy zipper. Okay, so I'm going to take this to the machine and I'm going to base stitch across the top here. Okay, so I have just basted on the zipper here. I'm still not putting on my pull. Now we're going to need our exterior zipper pocket lining. Make sure that you are grabbing the exterior, not the interior. And I am going to put this right side facing up, and I am going to put my exterior right side facing down. So that way the zipper will be sandwiched between. So I am clipping this here, and then I'm going to take it to the machine, and I am going to sew this at the full seam allowance and change out to my zipper foot to be able to do that. All right, so I have just sewn on my zipper at the full seam allowance. So now we are going to open this up and then fold it down. So our exterior should be facing up, and then our lining is much longer, and you'll see the wrong side of your lining. That's correct, because we're going to fold this up later to make a pocket. So if you're using a material that you can press, you might want to give it a good press right now. Especially if you're using water resistant canvas or waterproof canvas. Sometimes this, I find, creates like more of a bubble that then gets stuck in my zipper. So I always make sure to kind of tug it and make sure that I'm as far away from that zipper as possible. So now I'm going to do 2 things while I'm at the machine just because it's easier. I am going to put a line of top stitching here along this exterior pocket. And then once I have my top stitching, I'm going to fold this pocket in half so that way our right sides will be together and baste it to the top of the zipper. So if it's basted like this, you can see on the back we're going to have that pocket there. So again, that's 2 things. I'm going to first top stitch. You don't want to fold it first. You'll sew your pocket together. So top stitch it and then fold it and base stitch it to the top of the zipper. All right, so now I have my exterior pocket. I have top stitched it, folded that pocket in half, and base stitched it to the top of the zipper. And so now I need to add my zipper pull if you haven't already done so. I want mine to open left to right. So I'm going to start on the right hand side, and I just pull apart my zipper and use my hands. I'm right-handed, so I always start on the right hand side first and then put in the left. I usually try to cut the teeth a little bit higher on the right hand side. When I cut this one, it didn't, so that's why it keeps kind of popping out. So I'm gonna try to get it straight without having to recut the end.
Okay.
So you can see there's a little bit of a bubble here. So I could either try again, or what I can honestly do is just pull it apart, because I want to check to make sure that my pockets are right side together, that everything's sewed correctly. And then when this zips, that bubble will be gone. And I'm not going to trim off the extra yet, because I'm going to wait till it goes in the seam. If you, again, have it on the edge, you might want to take a lighter and just singe the edges to make sure that your zipper won't fray. Okay, and what I'm going to do is take this to the machine, and I'm just going to base stitch down the right hand side and the left hand side. That will close up my zipper, and it's also going to close up the pocket on the left and the right hand side. Okay, so I have just basted the pocket closed. And so now we need our exterior front top panel. So now you want to be very, very mindful if you're using directional fabric. If you're not using directional fabric, this isn't quite as much of a big deal. But we want it to look like this eventually. So the exterior top and then the bottom. So what we need to do is this front panel, we need to put right sides together, but we want the bottom part. So I'm flipping that forward, and I'm aligning the bottom of that exterior with the top part of this zipper. And I'm just clipping that in place. And again, now that my zipper pull is on there, I'm moving that out of the way as I clip so I don't get that bubble. So now I'm going to take this to the machine, and I am going to stitch using my zipper foot, making sure that I'm moving my zipper pull out of the way as I go across the top, back stitching at the beginning and the end. In order to make sure that you're doing this correctly, you can flip this up and make sure that your print is going in the correct direction. Okay, so I'm going to take that to the machine. All right, so I have just stitched it in place along the top of my zipper. And when I'm moving my zipper pull out of the way, I always put my needle down and lift my presser foot to kind of help adjust it. So now we are going to fold this open and give it a good press. I'm just pressing with my fingers, but if you have an iron, I definitely recommend pressing it just to get that nice crisp seam. And we are going to now top stitch across the top here, making sure that your seam allowance in the back is pointing up. So you're going through all the layers of both your zipper and the pocket back here. And so we're going to top stitch that in place. And again, moving your zipper pull out of the way. All right, so this is our front exterior. We have our pocket done. We have just top stitched along the top. It's quite a large, like a long piece. I still haven't trimmed my zipper. That's just personal preference. And this is what it looks like from the back. So I'm going to set this to the side and grab our side pocket pieces. Okay, so I have my slip pocket pieces here for the sides. And I am doing one on each side. So we should have 2 exteriors and 2 linings. They're mirror cut. So we are going to put our exterior right sides down. So our lining and our exterior are right sides facing together. And I'm going to clip along the top. And do the same for the other side. Just making sure that I line these up correctly. Okay. And then I am going to take this to the machine and sew it, align just the top to begin with at the given seam allowance. And just a little tip, I am putting the waterproof canvas with that PVC backing down. It tends to stick to my zipper foot or my regular presser foot. So I like to put it against the feed dogs, and this is the water resistant canvas, so it doesn't have that sticky backing. If I ever want to get to the lining, I use a Teflon foot on this PVC side. So if you're having trouble with your waterproof canvas, like sticking and the stitches are very small, try using a Teflon foot sewing over it. Okay, so I'm going to take this in the machine and stitch along the top of both pockets. Okay, so I've just stitched along both of the pockets. So now we are going to fold them open and press them so they are wrong sides together. And I'm just creasing extra well where the top of my zipper pocket is, or my slip pocket, sorry. And I like to clip them just to really hold that crease. If you're using cotton woven, definitely give it a good press. And you could clip around all the other sides if you wanted to, because we are now going to top stitch along that top and then baste the other 3 sides closed. So I'm not going to clip it. I think it's okay. But if you want to clip it to help hold it together for that basting stitch, that would work well too. And again, I'm just putting some clips to hold it. And so now I'm going to take this to the machine and I'm going to top stitch along the top and then just continue to base stitch along the rest of the 3 sides. So that way my lining and my exterior are held together. Alright, so I have my 2 pockets here where I've basted down the sides and the bottom. So now we need our 2 large side panels. So I have them here, and again, these are quite tall. And these are also interfaced with the fusible fleece since these will be the exterior. So what we are going to do is put our pockets on the bottom of each. So I'll show you on one because it's the same steps. So we're going to line up the bottom. It should be the same length across. It might have shifted a tiny bit because of sewing the pockets and the sides. If that's the case, then just center it. So we're going to clip the bottom. And again, if you have directional, make sure that it's going in the correct direction. And so now we're going to clip the edges. So this is what's going to give it that 3D effect where you can actually fit something inside of the pocket. So it might be a little bit funny to line them up because you can see it's like bunching. So just take your time. For me, it's easiest to kind of just lay them flat and slide the clips underneath. So now I'm going to turn it this way so you can see on this side. And now this second side might be a little bit easier because that one side's already clipped into place. So it can't slide anywhere. Okay, so I think when I was saying that I was going to take them to the machine, I accidentally said sew the given seam allowance. But I really mean base them, because if we do the seam allowance, it would show when we attach these to the front panel. So make sure that you are basting these pockets in place on all three sides, but I still do put that extra backstitch at the beginning and the end to help hold that pocket. Okay, so now I have both my side panels with my pockets base stitched on, and we need to add them to our center. So that is our piece that we had did in the beginning with the front zipper pocket. And the other thing that you want to make sure is that your pocket pieces down here are mirrored. So my taller point is on the left on this side and on the right hand side. And so we are going to put them right sides together. So I'm going to start with the right hand side first, and I'm going to turn it towards me so I can clip it better. But we are going to start clipping at the bottom and work our way up the top. So the top might not align. There might be the center or the sides are a little bit longer, and that's okay because we can trim that afterwards. What's most important is that we are lining this up with the bottom. So I'm just taking my time. I like turning it towards me. That way I can really see that edge and make sure I'm clipping everything. You can see my zipper is poking out a little bit. I'm going to keep it there and then trim it after this step. I just like having it a little bit longer, and being sewed into the seam will help keep it from coming undone or fraying. So I'm going to take it to the machine, and I'm going to stitch at the given seam allowance down this side panel, and then I'm going to repeat the same exact thing for this left hand side. Alright, so I have just attached the side pockets. The top of mine lines up fine, so I did not need to trim it. What could cause that to shift is depending on how you sewed your zipper down here. Some people like more the zipper shape to show or less, but mine seems to line up perfectly. And so I'm going to set that to the side, because now we are going to make our top and bottom like straps. And if you're making it out of cotton woven or water resistant canvas, she shows you the method to make like a 4-fold. I'm going to use webbing. So this is going to be for my top buckle, and this is going to be for the bottom. So first thing that we need to do is, and I also switched out my adjustable sliders for these fixed with the seat felt webbing. Since it's so thin, they tend to work much better for me. Okay, so you're going to come over one side and up and down back the other. And then we are just going to pull this a little bit to the side, and I don't want this raw edge to show, so I'm going to fold it under about a 1/2 inch. And I am going to clip this and take it to the machine. And I'm going to top stitch this webbing to itself on this side. I'm probably going to put 2 lines of stitching. I could switch out my thread to make it match, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave the red thread. But you might want to switch it out if you're using something to help it blend. And I like to do the 2 rows of stitching just to make sure that it's very secure. You could also put rivets here if you wanted as well. Okay, so it actually works out good. I used the red so you can see it better. I have done my 2 lines of top stitching, and now we want our piece of the buckle that has the prongs. And depending on what you have, you might have a center bar, you might only have one. I have that center bar. So I'm going to come up from the left, down on the right hand side, and then because I am now going to bring this back through and come up on the left of my center slider, my adjustable slider, because I'm going to cover this fold here. That's how I know I'm coming up on the correct side, and then back down on the right. So when I do that, I'll then have my buckle on the left. It's going to be facing the correct way. It's not upside down or anything. I have my adjustable slider, and then I have the end here. And then I'm going to set that to the side because now I'm going to work on my bottom. So this is kind of tiny. I might need to cut this bigger depending. We're going to see how it goes with the instructions. So we are going to put that centered. And then I'm going to kind of fold both of these in. Not quite to the center. I'm going to put it a little bit more towards the bottom because with my presser foot, I'm not going to be able to get that close to this chunkier plastic piece. And I'm just going to kind of clip this in place. And I'm folding them because I don't want the raw edges to show anywhere. And again, I have cut my webbing down to the exact measurements that if you were making these on your own, what they would finish at. So again, I'm going to see how this goes, but I might need to make this a tiny bit bigger. And I'm going to grab the next piece that we need. We're going to need our front panel again, because we're going to be attaching this to the bag right onto it. So I'm going to go off camera for a second because I'm going to find my center. I'm going to find my measurement up, and then I'll come back on to show you. Okay, so I just found my center and I used some chalk to mark it since it will cut off nicely. Now I am going to use some double-sided tape here, and I'm just going to put that on the mark because I'm going to stick this right on top of it. And I'm hoping that that is going to hold it in place enough. I might have to put some double-sided tape to kind of hold the webbing folded back on itself. So between here, and I'm just kind of matching up the centers. So I'm going to probably have to readjust this. This might move, but I'm going to take it to the machine and I'm going to sew a square all the way around. I'm going to make sure I backstitch really well. And I'm going to see how this goes because again, I don't know how close I'm going to be able to get to this buckle. So we're going to see how it goes once I'm at the machine. All right, so I have just stitched the rectangle on. It's not super pretty, but it is definitely secure and held in place. I think another option that you could do is maybe include it down here when you put that zipper on, but it would make it pretty bulky. So I guess that'd be something that you'd have to check if your machine would go through. But I do have it attached. I did the box and it is secure. So I'm going to move this to the side because we're going to work on our back tabs next. All right, so I have grabbed my exterior bottom back panel because we are going to need that, as well as 2 more pieces of webbing. I have them cut to the measurements that if you were creating this yourself that you would make. So I have the rectangle rings and the bottom has that groove. So I'm going to cover that part with the webbing so it doesn't show. You could also use D-rings for this. And so I'm going to clip that. And now I prefer, so these do not like really wiggle around, to top stitch as close to this bar as I can. So I am going to take that to the machine and do a line of top stitching. Also, while I'm off camera, I have my back panel. I want to make sure that I have it in the correct orientation. There is a measurement on the bottom here because we are going to be placing our tabs on here and sewing them. So I'm going to mark that measurement on the left and right bottoms, and I'm also going to mark my top center. Okay, so you might notice that we're much farther along in the video. I have to refilm this. I accidentally didn't even think about this and sewed my tabs outward. They need to be angled inward. And I didn't even recognize it until just now when I went to sew up the side. So I am going to unpick these and show you again real quick. So I wanted to put this in, one, because that's how I am showing you how to fix it and making sure that you get it done correctly. But two, I like leaving my mistakes if I can explain how to correct them, because mistakes happen to every sewist. And a lot of times the videos or instructions are written so perfectly and then we never see it. So I'm going to unpick this off camera and then come back on and show you the correct orientation. Okay, so I apologize that I have to come back and show, but so now I'm going to base these back on. I have my tabs. You want them facing inwards. When I did this originally, I put them outwards and I didn't even notice it until I went to sew up my sides, and they would have been stuck on the outside. So we have our tabs now correctly, and I'm going to base them into place. And then the other thing we need to do is I have marked my top center, because we need to take our top clip, I guess you could call it, and we are going to sew that in the center. So you're going to line up the center, and we want the slider to be against our fabric. So basically it's like the wrong side up. And we want to leave it overhanging a little bit, especially if you're using webbing, because even though I burnt the edges, it could still fray, and we want to make sure that we're catching that in the seam allowance to have it really secure. Okay, so I'm going to take that to machine, and I'm going to stitch into place, back base stitch each of these. This one just moved on me, so I need to re-clip it. And I'm definitely going to make sure that I am back stitching a few times to make it sure that it's extra secure, because all of these are going to be tugged and pulled on. Okay, so now that these are all basted on, the other thing we need to add is a grab handle. So again, I have some webbing. In the instructions, she shows you how you can make the 4-fold handle. And so I just like to put it to the left and the right of my center, like clip thing. I forgot what it's called. I'm sorry. And I'm overhanging this about the same distance, because again, I want the handle. It will end up being large enough that I can still grab it, but also I want to make sure that my webbing does not come undone and is very secure in that stitch, or that seam. Okay, so now I'm going to take this to the machine and again just base stitch this in place at the edge, making sure I'm going over it quite a few times to make sure it's extra secure, especially because you're going to be grabbing your bag from there. Okay, so I have just basted on that grab handle. So now I am going to grab my webbing and cut it. I need 2 straps, so I'm going to cut it to the measurement given in the pattern. If you are making them, you're going to do that process first. All right, so I have my 2 pieces of webbing. So we are going to attach them to the top. And again, we are putting them at an angle, that 45-degree angle to the left and the right of that grab handle. So you can, I'm going to do the measurement, just double check them offline. I'm just clipping them now to give you an idea. And you definitely want, again, for them to be overhanging the top, so that way it's entirely caught in the seam. And then, so once you have them at the correct angle, you're going to take it to the machine and you're going to base them in place, making sure that you are giving a few back stitches, helping to be extra secure. All right, so I have attached my handles. This one's a little bit further to the left than this one is to the right, but I don't think that is going to be really noticeable. So we're not attaching our straps down here yet. So I just grabbed an elastic and I'm gonna bundle these up just to kind of keep them out of my way. All right, so I have just finished basting on my straps. If you see this down here, it's because I accidentally forgot to put the top on. So I had jumped ahead, but I'm putting this now on in the correct order that you should be doing it. So this is the exterior top panel, and we want to make sure it's facing the correct direction, and then fold it down, right sides down against this top here. I'm going to clip it into place, and this is going to go all the way across where all of our webbing is here. And I'm actually going to use some longer clips because the webbing is poking out, so my shorter clips won't really catch it. And I'm going to take that to the machine, and I'm going to sew across the top at the given seam allowance, and I like to do some back stitches across all these webbing pieces that are poking out. Okay, so while I'm at the machine, I'm going to show this next part. I have just stitched along here. So now I'm going to fold this open, and I'm going to pull all of my straps, my handle, and my tab to the top, and just gently pull this under, because now I'm going to do 3 rows of top stitching on this left hand side here. So all my webbing is up out of the way, and those 3 lines of top stitching are going to help catch and hold this webbing in, because all my seam allowances on the underneath are pushed to the left. All right, so I have just stitched on that top piece and then folded it up and did my 3 lines of top stitching. And you can see on the back that those 3 lines catch all of this webbing to help make it extra secure. You could even put some rivets here if you wanted to as well. And so now I'm going to grab my exterior bottom piece, and we're going to put together the exterior. And now we need our bottom panels. So I cut mine out of the red waterproof canvas, but we are going to put this right sides together with the back panel. It should line up perfectly. If it doesn't, then you want to match your centers, but mine is lined up perfectly. And what we're going to do is we are going to bring it to the machine and we're going to sew. But before I do that, there is a measurement given in the pattern. I'm going to mark that off camera on the sides, and I'm going to start at that measurement, backstitch there, and end at that measurement. So you're not going all the way to the end. So be very mindful of that. Okay, so I've just attached to the bottom, starting and stopping at those marks that I have made. And so now I have marked my center of the bottom piece, and we need our front panel. And I have also marked the center of that. I've marked it on the wrong side, so it's a little bit easier to see. And so now we are going to line the bottom of that front panel right sides together with this curve. So I have my panel face down, and I'm pulling this bottom panel towards me, but the correct sides of the fabric are touching each other. So I am just matching up that center mark first, and then I'm just going to take my time and clip all the way around the curve. It doesn't say in the pattern which way to push these seams. I'm just going to push them outwards to the right, or if it said it in the pattern, I didn't catch it. So I'm just clipping them towards the exterior, or towards the sides panels, I should say. And this is a curve, so just take your time. And you can see that I'm lifting this up as I go. And that's just making it a little bit easier for me to clip. And I'm going to continue around this side. And then I'm going to take this to the machine. And I am going to sew all the way around, again, stopping at that little mark that I have pulled in. It should line up basically with our stitchings where we have stopped before. But I'm going to clip the rest of this off camera since it's the same exact thing. And it's also recommended that as you're sewing this, to sew with the exterior top side up and leave that curved part on the bottom. So I'm going to try that and see how it works. All right, so I just finished sewing on the curve, and you can see here that my seam allowance wiggled a little bit. The lining shifted out. I tried to use a stiletto the best I can, but it does happen. I try not to worry about it too much. So what I do is then I turn this right sides out, because you could just pop it out real quick and check. So if you have that where it happens to curve on you, you can just go ahead and turn it right sides out and run your finger along that crease. And honestly, like, I think it's okay. This is a little bit, I don't know if you can see it on camera. There's like a fray, but I just clipped that off. This is like the only spot right here where there's like a slight wrinkle. And it's almost like not even noticeable. It's going to be the bottom of the bag. So it's not enough that I'm going to unpick it. So even though my lining shifted a little bit, I'm okay with it. So now what we're going to do is we need to sew up the sides. Okay, so I have just fixed the tabs so they are facing inwards instead of outwards, because we are sewing up the sides and they should match up evenly, and just that little piece of webbing will be sticking out. So I'm just starting from the bottom and working my way up, clipping it. And we're going to sew it at the given seam allowance. And again, when we get to that bottom, we're going to stop about at that marking away. The measurement is in the pattern, and that's just helping us. The bottom is coming together perfectly when we are stopping at that measurement instead of going all the way to the end. So a really nice way of putting together a bag, especially the bases. I have done it before on square or like rectangle bases. This is my first time with a circular, and I really like it. All right, so I'm going to bring it to the machine and stitch along this side, and then I'm going to repeat the process for the other side because it's the same exact step. Okay, so I have just finished sewing up both sides. I never trimmed down my zippers here, so I'm just going to cut those edges off. You can use a lighter and singe the edge so they don't fray. I feel like that they are within multiple seams now, so I don't think that'll be a problem. And you can turn it right sides out to check to make sure everything looks good. And when we install the lining, we're going to need this right sides out anyways. So it's okay to do it now, and you don't have to turn it back. And really take your time to poke out the bottom. Make sure everything looks nice, like as far as your tabs on the side, the bottom here. I'm so short. I'm really trying to get my arm down in there, but also keep it on camera. Okay. And then this side here. I think everything looks really, really nice. So what the front looks like, if we want to kind of stand it up to get an idea. So we have the front, the pockets, our back. We still have not attached the straps down on the bottom yet, that's okay. Just make sure everything looks decent, and then you can set it aside and grab your lining. All right, so now we're going to work on our lining. I am putting in an interior zipper pocket. So if you are just reading through the instructions, it doesn't show this in the middle of the pattern. You have to scroll to the end. It's like an add-on. So I have my interior zipper pocket lining, and we are drawing a box. This is going to be our zipper box. I have already marked the center and drew the box to the given measurements. And it's wide enough because I am using a size 5. And then we need our interior back panel. And so I'm going to just find the center of this. And because this is the waterproof canvas, it puts that crease in it in the PVC side when you fold. So I want to put my lining right side facing down. So the right sides are together. And I'm lining up my centers at the top. And I'm just going to flip it to, stroke that, but clip it to hold it in place. Because we're not actually stitching the top. This is just to help me keep it aligned. Wow, I feel like breaking clips today. All right. What we are going to stitch is we're going to take it to our machine, lay this flat, and stitch around this box here. So I'm actually going to put some of these hair clips to hold it since they go a little bit longer. If you want to use some pins, you can. I'm not going to because of the PVC. It will leave the hole. Probably won't be so noticeable from the front, but I think it's fine just like this. So I'm going to take this to the machine and stitch all the way around the box. I'm going to use probably about a 2 stitch length, something small, and try to do it as straight as possible and as even as possible. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end. And because this is PVC and on the back is PVC, I'm going to use my Teflon foot because it helps go over this material better on my machine. Alright, so I have just sewed all the way around my box. It's a little hard to see because it's red thread on red fabric. And now I have drew my center line and kind of made a little triangle here. So I am going to take my seam ripper to just create a seam that I can then fit my scissors into. And I'm going to cut along that line. And then when I come to the little triangle part, I'm going to snip into my corner as close as possible without cutting the thread. And the closer that you get it, the better this will look. Because we are going to be turning this through to create our zipper pocket opening, and then it will become our lining. All right. So through that opening that we just cut, we are pushing this interior zipper pocket line. And it might take a little bit of maneuvering, especially if you're using a waterproof canvas or anything that's a little bit thicker. And then from the correct side, what I like to do is kind of straighten the seam in the back and then work it from the front. If you are using a material like cotton woven, definitely give this a press. You want this as flat as possible. and as square as possible. So if you tug on it too much, you can warp the box. So I'm just trying to press down my seam allowances as best I can. And you can see a little bit that the corners are wanting to pucker a tiny bit. I'm going to try to straighten that out. This is where if you have zipper overlays, you could use a zipper overlay for this. A lot of people use them because it will hide any imperfections in the corner, or if your box is not perfect. But I'm not worried about that. I'm not going to do a zipper overlay here. Now I am going to cut my zipper tape. And again, I like to cut mine a little bit longer. And for this, we do have to put our pull on immediately. So I'm going to do that as well. All right, perfect. Now for this, we are going to have to put the zipper behind and then top stitch around this box, which then holds that zipper in place. But what is going to make that easier is some double-sided tape. And I used to not put double-sided tape thinking that it would be in my stitch line. But I found that if I put the double-sided tape along like the very edge, like almost overhanging it, it doesn't get in my stitch line, and then it doesn't get sticky. Okay. And then what I'm going to do next is just peel off this double-sided tape, and I'm going to position it. If we look from the back, our pocket is open like this. I want my zipper opening left to right. So I'm going to peel off that double-sided tape and then position my zipper here in the lining. But that might take a little bit to get straight and to peel this tape. So I'm going to do that off camera, and I'll come back on once I have it stuck. All right, so from the front, you can see I have my zipper centered. This is what it looks like from the back. And I actually cut my zipper like almost perfectly, that it's going all the way to the end of the lining, which is great because that's going to catch when I sew that. And I just, like I said, I love having my zipper be sewed in a little bit longer. So now from the front, I'm going to make sure that that stays open. And I am going to take this to the machine and top stitch all the way around this box. And I am going to backstitch because it's going to blend in because I'm using red on red. Okay, so I apologize. I forgot to hit record when I was sewing for the time lapse. So I have just stitched all the way around. I did my back stitch over here, and you could like barely even tell because it just blends in. And then on the back, this is what it looks like. We can see the box all the way around through the zipper. So now we are going to close up this lining. You could probably leave a turning hole and turn your bag through this if you wanted to, but I'm just going to do it according to the pattern as if there was not an interior zipper pocket. So I'm just clipping the bottom, and we're going to sew all three sides closed. So again, I'm going to clip the sides, and so starting from the front, I am going to flip this back and just stitch down the side, folding this out of the way, come across the bottom, and then back up the other side. And I will catch my zipper in that as well, so I don't have to worry, even though I have this box, even though I have the box around here to catch the zipper, I just love, like I said, having that extra security there too. All right, so we have just sealed up our pocket. You definitely want to open it up just to double check. And like I said, you could even leave this open if you want to turn through there. But now we're going to finish our lining. It's this same exact method as we did for the exterior. So I have my other bottom lining, and I'm going to put it right sides together with the bottom. I have not marked the measurement yet, but I'm going to clip this together and then mark the measurement on the sides. And I realized that I actually did put some fusible fleece, but that's okay that it's in the lining. It's still going to support at the bottom. So I'm going to mark the 2 measurements here, and then I'm going to stitch out the given seam allowance, starting at the measurement and ending here, backstitching at the beginning and the end. Okay, so I have just stitched across, and so now I have my center marked here, and we need our front lining panel. I was going to say exterior, so front lining. I also have the center marked, and so I'm putting them right sides together and clipping those centers. And then the same thing that we did with the exterior, I'm just going to work my way around. And again, we're going to take it to the machine. We are going to stitch out the given seam allowance and stopping from that measurement at the end. So you can go ahead and mark that out. So I'm going to finish clipping this off camera because it's the same exact method that we did for the exterior, just now with the lining. Okay, so we just sewed that bottom circle. So now we're going to do the same exact thing for the sides, except on one of the sides, we are going to leave a turning hole. This is how we're going to turn the bag. So instead of through the bottom, it's going to be through the side, which I really like because that would have been kind of difficult through the circle or circular bottom. Okay, so I'm going to put a clip here, and then I'm going to leave a fairly decent size turning gap, especially because I'm using waterproof canvas and water resistant canvas, but I'm just making sure that it is straight and lined up. Okay. And mine's a little bit off up here. It shifted a little bit, I think, when I was doing my base, but I'm gonna trim that up at the end. I'm not worried about it right now. So I'm gonna take this to the machine and backstitch here and then continue sewing to here and then leave this turning opening and then start my backstitch here and continue all the way down. And then for the other side, I'm going to sew it up completely. So I'm going to clip that side and sew both of them at the same time. All right, so I have just sewed up each side and I left the turning hole on this side here. It doesn't say it in the instructions, but I am going to trim down my seam allowance along the lining part. I think it will help the bag, the lining sit a little bit better, but I am going to not cut all the way up to the end of the top. I'm going to start about 1.5 inches and then work my way down. And then the bottom and the same thing. And I'm not trimming down where that turning hole is, just below it and a couple inches above it. And then I'm going to set it aside and grab my zipper for the top. Okay, so I have my longest zipper here. You can put the pull on now or wait. I'm going to wait. I think it might make it a little bit easier. But we do need to turn our zipper at a 90-degree angle. So she says just to form a little triangle. So how I do that is I marked about 1/2 inch down on each side. It's in silver. So I pull that apart and I bend my zipper tape wrong sides together at that fold. And I kind of pinch it with my hand and then the zipper teeth fold up and sit right along that top groove. And I just clip it into place. And the same thing, so on that mark, bend it wrong sides together back, and then gently let the zipper teeth kind of come back up and clip it into place. You want to make sure that they are even. Now on the back, there is 2 triangles. So what I do is I bring this to the machine and I tack this into place. But what I do is I put my needle down first, making sure I'm catching that triangle, and then I will backstitch in place a few times. And the same thing on this side, because if you don't catch that triangle, it will just all the way open up. So I find it easiest to put the needle down and then my presser foot. All right, so I have my zipper tape here with my teeth forming that 90-degree curve. And so now I have my exterior and I clip the centers and there's measurements. It's really hard to see, but I have a silver mark on each side on both the front and the back. So you should have 4 marks. So we're going to take one of our zipper teeth or T-side down. So you can leave this connected, but if you're putting on a pull after, I actually think it's easiest to keep it apart, pull it apart. And so we are going to line up that curve of our teeth with the line that we drew. And look, I'm already doing it the wrong way. I want the side with the teeth down. I grabbed the side that had the teeth up. So the teeth curve is going on that line. I'm clipping it right there. And then I am just running the rest of my zipper tape across the top. Until we get to that second marked line. And this is also why I like to take off my zipper pull or not put it on yet, because you can see like it gets a little twisted and it's just much easier this way and it can be very confusing. All right, and so where this last mark is, I am going to put a clip there, but when I get to that, I want to sew it, kind of pull this at a 45-degree angle and backstitch right here. So all this extra is hanging off. That is we're going to put a tab on there at the end. So then we're going to repeat the same exact thing. And also this is because I want my pull to open left to right. So if you want it the opposite way, you'd have to reverse that. And so now we're going to do the same exact thing with the teeth on the right hand side where that curve is, because that will match up with the same side over here. And we are just running it across like we did. And again, we're going to pull that off at the 45-degree angle when we get to it. And so I'm going to take this to the machine and I'm going to baste each of these in place. And again, making sure where I get that last clip. Perfect. All right. So again, I'm going to take this to the machine and baste both of them in place on each side. All right, so I have just base stitched these in place on both sides. It's a little bit difficult to do both. So if you have trouble, you can do one side and the next. So we need our exterior with the right side facing out and the lining with the wrong side facing out. And so I am going to take my lining, make sure that I have it facing the same way. And in this case, it's like the back is facing up. And I am going to tuck my exteriors inside of my lining. And so you want to make sure that you are tucking in all the straps and these zipper tails. So if our seam allowances are good, this should line up perfectly. So I'm going to start at the 4 seams. That's easiest for me. I'm going to clip them first. And I am nesting my seams. So I'm having one go one way and the other go the opposite. Just helps them sit a little bit nicer. And do the same thing for them on this side. Or in this case, there's not seams to line up. And over here, I want to make sure that my zipper is really being pulled down. And actually, I'm going to put a clip here to kind of hold that out of the way. So now that I have those 2 clipped, if you have your centers of both marked, still you could line them up. What I like to do is kind of just work my way around and clip. And so really take your time, especially where these zipper starts to come into play. Okay, and so I'm going to clip this all the way around and I'll come back and explain once I'm done. All right, so I have it clipped all the way around. It lines up really, really nicely. So now we're going to take it to the machine and we are going to stitch all the way around. I'm going to put a zipper foot on because again, we're going over where that zipper is. On the side where those tails are, you really want to make sure that they are tucked down. And I'm going to stitch from the inside because I do not have a zipper foot that's a Teflon foot. I need to use my regular zipper foot, which is metal, and it does not slide well over that PVC. So I'm going to stitch from the inside, but still the given seam allowance. So you're going to go all the way around, back stitching at the beginning and the end because we have our turning hole on the side here. So I have just stitched all the way around the top. And so now we are going to turn it through our opening. I'm just going to start and try to go as gently as possible. I left a large opening, so it shouldn't be so bad, but especially on this back panel with all the straps and everything. You can use a blow dryer to help warm this up a little bit and help turn it. It's coming through, no problem.
See. God.
And you can see I haven't pulled out all the way of the lining, but up here you can see where the zipper tape is sewn in, and it is the correct side facing out. Thankfully it came off at that 90 or 45 degree angle. Sorry, I keep saying 90. So I'm pulling this all the way out, and then we are going to tuck it down inside. And I find it best to use that opening in the side to stick my hand all the way down and poke everything out. So I'm going to continue doing that off camera just to get it completely pushed down and inside. All right, so I have just turned the bag completely and tucked everything down inside. I have not closed up the turning hole yet. That's because I like to top stitch first. So in some bags, I actually reach my hand inside up through the lining and help push out the top. But because it has the zipper here, I found that I didn't really need to do that. What I am doing is I'm kind of like rolling it between my fingers. And you can use clips. Sometimes I use clips for this because now we need to top stitch this. And I always like to top stitch before closing up that turning point. So I'm going to just put some clips around to help hold it so that lining doesn't creep up, especially here on the sides where our zipper is like open. The other thing too is like I added a zipper because I liked the extra security of a zipper, but you could leave this completely open because we are closing it with that buckle, so it would be secure. I just live in a city with a lot of people and wear my backpacks on the train and stuff, so I prefer to have the extra security. All right, so once I clip here, I am going to take this to the machine and just top stitch all the way around the top. And I am going to backstitch. I'm going to probably backstitch and start in one of these red flowers to try to hide that a little bit. But I think it's going to blend really nicely. All right, I just finished top stitching all the way around the bag and I'm pretty happy with it. There's one part here where my lining crinkled a little bit, but it's not crinkled on the outside. So I'm not going to bother unpicking it because everything else came out so good except for that one spot. So now that I have that top stitch, I like to close up my lining. So I'm going to pull this out just enough that I can see this opening. And I like to just kind of stick my fingers on each edge and kind of give a little tug. And that tends to help fold it right down. And this was the part of the lining, the section that we did not trim. So there should be plenty of seam allowance left for you to clip together. So again, I'm just going to clip this quickly and take it to the machine. And I just close it up using a regular stitch length as close to the edge as possible. So I usually do about 1/8 of an inch away. All right, so I'm going to take that to the machine and close that up. Right, so now that I have that side turning hole sewed up, I can tuck my lining back down. And like I said, I always like waiting until after I top stitch to turn or to seal up my turning holes. Just because you never know if you're going to need to be able to reach inside of the bag or need to adjust something. So I like having that open. And now I haven't forgotten that I still need to add my zipper pull here. So I'm just going to line this up and add this on. And I like doing this, you could see afterwards, because if we had this on, this could get twisted. It's so easy to have that twisted in sewing that this way I don't have to worry about it so much. And there's a lot of extra leeway are left over on the zipper. So if you are struggling to put it on, it's not like perfectly even, that's okay. You have a lot that you could trim off if you needed to. Okay, I'm just bringing that all the way across, double checking it before I get too far and then realize either it doesn't work or doesn't, fill up the correct way. So if you want, you can cut this down. It's kind of a long tail. I think I'm going to take off a little bit. So maybe, 2 or 3 inches. 3 inches, probably. Yeah, about that. You could leave it long if you want. Now in the pattern, she has you make a zipper tab out of the fabric. I like these little zipper end caps. I'm just grabbing the tiny screw in here before it falls out. So I carry these in my shop. These are like extra wide. So you can burn the edge if you want. You can add some glue to this. I usually don't. I've never had a problem with it falling off. So how I install these are I fold the two edges into the center. And I know some people put some double-sided tape sometimes in that middle to hold them. These are so wide that I don't usually use the double-sided tape. I usually can fit it in without a problem. If you can't get it to fit, that double-sided tape will hold it a little bit like skinnier. So I have this pushed down as far as it will go. And so again, I'm just gonna grab my magnetic screwdriver. Let me find it and I'll be right back. All right, so I found my magnetic screwdriver, and again, we have a little tiny screw. And I love the magnet in the screwdriver because it just holds it there for me. And again, we're just installing this in. You could put some Loctite into the opening like the opening where you're putting the screw into to help keep it secure. But this is going through both the zipper tape, like the edge of it, and the teeth. I had to adjust it because I was trying to do it in the air. But because I'm screwing through that plastic or the nylon teeth, I needed a little bit more force. So I put it flat on my table and I was able to give it the force that it needed. So here you go. You can see that the screw's installed. And so from the top, it looks like this. And you could leave it open or hanging out. Whenever I have zippers with the tail like this, my personal preference is to tuck them down inside. So then it is not hanging out. And then when you fold this down, you want to have it hanging down either. Okay, and so now our last step is our straps. All right, so all we have now is finishing off our straps. So you want to make sure that they are not twisted, and you need one of your sliders. Like I said, I switch these out for a fixed slider because with the seatbelt webbing, it doesn't slip as much. You could also kind of sew like a little buffer to make it your webbing a little bit thicker, but I generally don't have a problem with this fixed bar. So in order to do this, this is kind of confusing. It's a little bit different than a crossbody strap. You are going over the center bar and down to begin with. And then you want to I want to go over my outside square of the square. So that way, like if I'm looking at it, my straps are like this and it's behind. So I want to go over and come up the back. And now with this slider, I want to give myself plenty of room because with this loose edge here, I'm coming back up on the right, coming underneath, down on the left, and I'm pulling this through a tiny bit, and I have this raw edge, so I'm going to fold it over once to hide that, and then you want to sew this. Normally with like a crossbody strap, after we thread, we would sew to the other side. But here, you want to sew it on the piece that just went up and over. So this piece that we just threaded underneath, we want to sew it. And I want to give as little space as possible, so that way my straps can be adjusted as much as possible. And I'm just clipping them so that way I can show you. So you can see here that once we sew this strap will adjust down or up. So again, after you thread it over that rectangle ring, you're coming up and over the bar underneath this part that we already did, and then sewing it back onto this piece that originally came up. So I'm going to take this to the machine, and just like I did for the other strap, I am going to sew 2 lines of top stitching to help hold this on. You could use rivets, you could use a combination, but you want to make sure that you're not going through this strap on the top part, or otherwise you won't be able to adjust your back. Okay, so I'm going to take that to the machine, and then I'll be back. All right, so I have just taken it to the machine and have stitched across on both. So that finishes up our straps. And so now your bag is complete. So I'm so excited to use this. I am absolutely in love with how this has turned out. And it's really a quite large bag that kids could use it for school, because it definitely is going to fit textbooks and a bunch of things in here. All right, we have just finished up our Stian. Thank you so much, Sylvie, for allowing me to film a tutorial for your lovely pattern. I absolutely love how it came out. I'm definitely going to be using this as my new work bag. And just to recap, I chose to do the front zipper pocket, the both exterior side pockets. This is option C that has the fold over front with the buckle. And I did choose to put a zipper in. Inside, it has the zipper pocket, which when you're reading the instructions, it's in an appendix in the back of the instructions. So make sure you scroll down to the end if you want to include that. And then I chose to use webbing for all my straps. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you do, please consider subscribing or giving me a thumbs up. I appreciate it so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.